So here we go. Um, let's start the show, guys, right now. All right, so just a reminder for those who may not have been here, you may hear voices in the background, a little bit of noise in the background. I had to turn off noise suppression. We are going to be playing videos where people are outside, horns are honking, stuff like that. And it's going to sound choppy like last time. That's due to that. I haven't figured out a way around that, guys. I haven't had a whole lot of time. We've been really busy around here. So I will get going with the show. How's everybody? Here we are. It is 2026. Nothing is happening. I mean, just ask anyone. Trump was obviously just lying about everything on the campaign trail, right? At least that's what we're hearing from some people, right? So, anyways, as I've said since early last year, 2026 is going to be the year of accountability. We discussed a few shows back the year of the boomerang, Dan Scavino post that has now been taken down when he was banned from X or Twitter. Already started last year, and we saw it. We saw the boomerang. USAID, they tried defending it, boomerang, and the more people would dig, the more we found that things weren't looking too good. Epstein Files boomerang. We now have CNN, Abby Phillips openly admitting that Trump wasn't involved with any of it, and he did in fact kick Epstein out and cut ties and worked with the prosecution, all based on a New York Times article that said the same recently. But it did show Democrats texting with him and asking for dating advice after he had been to jail or prison for the first offense that Trump helped him go to prison for. So that was a big old boomerang, and the list goes on and on. I mean, I could make a whole show about all the boomerangs that happened last year. I'm sure you guys remember quite a few of them. But here we are, not even a weekend, and let's take a look at what's going on. So first, let's start here. I wanted to show you this. This was Harmeet Dillon on the Charlie Kirk show. Also, I'm going to set up my microphone on an arm soon because it just makes more sense. It's down here. It's like below me right now on the desk, and I feel like it's just not a good spot for it. So I'll have to put the arm back up, even though that also annoys me. So here we go. This is Harmeet.
Friends,
Bro,
the Charlie Kirk show.
1 second. Let me get this loaded up for you. They're gonna do like an intro. There you go. What is this? Oh. Yeah. Hang on. That's the wrong video. See, guys, this is what happens when Trump keeps messing with my podcast and like changing news cycles on me. I had a whole show ready. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. This is what we're looking at. Let's get it playing. And it won't autoplay.
Friends,
there we go.
The Charlie Kirk show team here. America's debt bomb has blown past why more Americans say to qualified purchase.
All right, let's listen to what she has to say.
Tim Waltz, Keith Ellison, they want to see these guys indicted, arrested for their complicity or turning the other way when they knew the fraud was happening. In the previous segment, Blake mentioned a Fox 9 article from 2019 where this sort of daycare fraud was publicized first, and they were even alleging that some of the money was getting back to Al-Shabaab even in 2019. Then we had the City Journal reporting from Christopher Rufo that basically alleged the same. What would it take to indict a sitting governor? I mean, I know that you have an official role and there's only so much you can say, so please, by all means, be careful. But just legally speaking, I mean, we haven't really seen anything like that, at least in living memory.
Well, we have. I mean, Rod Blagojevich was, of course, indicted. He's a Democrat governor. In fact, many Illinois governors have been indicted and convicted of crimes, and senators have as well. And
sitting?
It does happen. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he was sitting at the time, but he was convicted for behavior that he allegedly engaged in while he was a sitting governor. And so, it does take time to put convictions together. So let me tell you how. And again, this is not my area of expertise. I'm civil rights chief. I do have some criminal, some jurisdiction involving hate crimes and stuff. But there's a concept in the DOJ and also in state prosecutions called public corruption. And they're prosecutors who specialize in public corruption cases. And they're difficult cases to bring, and they typically involve informants or somebody who has been engaged in criminal behavior themselves, like paying bribes to a sitting official and then perhaps agreeing to wear a wire or, otherwise there's sufficient evidence because they plead guilty and there's a grand jury and then there's, enough evidence to go in and get a wiretap and or financial records and then go trace the money and build an ironclad case. And I think.
Now, did you catch all that? For people who maybe didn't quite understand what she was saying exactly what I've been telling you for nearly a year. Isn't that what I've been? Yes, that's what I've been telling you. So stop feeding on the fake MAGA grifter dramas. If you're one of these people that are that are following these doom posters, black pillars, that are just trying to black pill everybody for their own financial gain, it's pathetic. I will suggest. Look, I know anybody can be corrupted, right? At the end of the day, but I will suggest Barry Cunningham to you. Look him up on YouTube. He's a former Miami Dolphins player. He goes live every day. That's literally what he does. He's retired. His kids are all moved out and stuff. He's down in Florida. He'll keep you posted on a lot of stuff when I'm down for the count. Okay. Busy or just not able to do a show. So that's a good follow here on YouTube. I'm just letting you know. And he definitely doesn't need my word of mouth. He's got a huge base of people. So, but I told you all this, and I said it's going to take time. So you heard what she said. They have to be, well, they have to get a grand jury to be able to start obtaining some of the records. Tim Walz is shot. He's done. I think Ilhan Omar's going down. This is all going to tie back to all of them. There's that woman, the white woman. I can't think of her name. She was involved. She was like the head of Feeding Our Future or whatever. She's also shown up now on like 40 plus of these daycares. So yeah, it's going to happen. Now, I'm not covering a lot. I just wanted to show you that to illustrate to you that, things are happening. It's just, it takes time to build a case for these people because you have to do it right. You have to do it to where somebody like a Tim Walz, or, whoever is going to end up where you're hoping that they end up, which would be behind bars. That's not easy to do, especially with people in power. It's just not, so I can't say it enough. She keeps saying the same thing over and over like I did. I showed you the last show where she was calling out these MAGA wannabe grifters and stuff. And she accurately called them out, called them retards and losers. And now she's confirmed it again live. So I just wanted to go there. And I'm also going to bring to your attention, there is a new anti-Bondi PSYOP out there that's claiming that Trey Gowdy is going to replace her. And I mean, I guess we'll see. But I'm betting on no, because I don't think Trump trusts him any more than any of us trust that guy, okay? The other narrative is that the DOJ has just ruled that they ban pocket knives. In reality, what happened is that the DOJ just basically reaffirmed a longstanding law against butterfly knives and switchblades. The law states that 2A doesn't cover these knives. This was passed before I was even born, I think. Why would they affirm this now? My guess is it's a signal, right? If you want this to not be a law, what you have to do is, if you're mad about that, you take it to court and you fight that law, right? And it may go up to SCOTUS, but if you win, now they're covered. You can't just piss and moan that the hey Laura, you can't just piss and moan that things are banned, and then when the DOJ says yes, we agree these are banned, here's the law, say look, they just banned it. They're trying to ban pocket knives. It's psyops, dude. I don't know what it is about Pam Bondi that they don't like about her, other than the fact that she's winning for Trump on every goddamn level. So, I mean, even down to what we're about to discuss. So, as you've heard by now, I mean, it's been kind of a little bit of talking in the news about this. They arrested Maduro. I know, it's crazy. You probably heard a little bit about it so far. There's been a few people talking about it. So, the left is actually upset about a president being arrested all of a sudden. There's that. That's an amazing development. Didn't seem to matter a couple years ago when it was here in America. What are you going to do? It's just weird. So before we begin, I already established we want to review the Monroe Doctrine. So let me get that loaded up for you really quick, and I'll bring it up on the screen. This is just it's basically an AI video, but it really does cover it pretty in depth despite that. So bear with me. This is the best video I think that covers this. It doesn't throw in people's opinions. There's not some, overeducated retard telling us what he thinks it means and all this. It's literally just cut and dry. This is what it is. So let's take a look at that again and just keep this in your mind. Keep this in your mind as we speak. I just bumped my microphone. Sorry.
In the 1820s, European empires were still expanding. They were eager to reclaim colonies and to assert their dominance over the Americas. At this time, a young United States decided to take an aggressive stance with a message to the world: hands off the Western Hemisphere. This was the Monroe Doctrine, a groundbreaking declaration that not only shaped U.S. foreign policy, but also redefined America's role in the world. The Monroe Doctrine was a foreign policy statement delivered by President James Monroe on December 2, 1823. In his annual address to Congress, Monroe declared that the Americas were off limits to new European colonization and interference. It was a bold move, essentially warning Europe that the Western Hemisphere was under U.S. protection.
Now, this is because Europe was setting up shop in some of these countries below us. What do we see happening in Venezuela, Cuba, I think even Nicaragua, and in places like that? We're seeing Chinese submarines. We're seeing Chinese ships. We're seeing all this military, Russian too. Don't get me wrong. Iranian military has been spotted at times around some of these places as well. That's why we're watching this video, because we've let this slide for so long that we're back to where we were then, just with different countries.
And any attempts to recolonize or interfere would be seen as a threat to American security. But what led to this strong stance? There were several key events that inspired the Monroe Doctrine. First, many Latin American nations were gaining independence from Spain and Portugal during the early 19th century. The U.S., as a young nation itself, sympathized with these new republics and wanted to protect them from European recolonization. Second, the European powers, led by the Holy Alliance of Russia, Prussia, and Austria, were working to restore monarchies and prevent the spread of revolutionary ideals. There were concerns that these powers might intervene in Latin America to help Spain regain control of its lost colonies. There was also fear of Russian expansion along the Pacific coast of North America. Russia had already begun establishing outposts in Alaska and was moving southward, raising alarms in the U.S. What were the key points of the Monroe Doctrine? First, the Americas were closed to any new European colonization. Secondly, European nations were warned not to interfere in the internal affairs of countries in the Western Hemisphere. Thirdly, in exchange, the U.S. promised it would not interfere in European affairs or in existing European colonies. Why was the Monroe Doctrine important? It laid the foundation for U.S. influence in the Western Hemisphere and promoted U.S. expansion. Also, it is important to note that over the years, the Monroe Doctrine would evolve. It would evolve to fit the needs of the U.S. and the changing geopolitical environment. While initially aimed at preventing European interference in Latin America, it would also be used to provide justification for U.S. territorial ambitions. Between 1840 and 1860, the Monroe Doctrine would influence Western expansion. It did so by reinforcing the idea that the Western Hemisphere was under American influence and control. With the support of the belief in manifest destiny, the U.S. would quickly expand and swallow up large areas in the West. The Monroe Doctrine would evolve again in 1904. At first, the doctrine was more of a defensive statement, but in 1904, President Theodore Roosevelt added the Roosevelt Corollary, which gave the doctrine teeth. The corollary asserted the U.S. had the right to intervene in Latin American countries to stabilize them. This justified numerous U.S. interventions in Latin American affairs and cemented U.S. dominance and aggression in the region. During the Cold War, the doctrine would be revived to combat the Soviet influence in the region, leading to U.S. involvement in various Latin American countries' affairs and even coups. And nowadays, while less interventionist, the Monroe Doctrine's core principle of U.S.'s influence survives, but it is now more focused on economic ties, the promotion of democracy, and security concerns.
And there you have it. So, do you think that our enemies showing up in a country which is very close to us is a security concern? Do you think that countries can possibly, most likely, conspiring with countries very close to us to do who knows what is a security concern? Keep in mind, under Biden, when the border was wide open, they were finding Chinese nationals crossing the border all over the place, and nobody knows where those people went. From what I understand, those same Chinese nationals weren't showing up in any of these, housing centers that these cities had for illegal aliens. They just disappeared into the country, and that was allowed through South America. All I'm saying is that this is a big issue. This is why Trump recently brought back the Monroe Doctrine and invoked he's now calling it what is he calling it? The Donroe Doctrine, he said the other day, Donroe Doctrine. But he added his own corollary to it as well. He said that, basically he enhanced the original corollary that was in the Monroe Doctrine with his own take on it, further expanding upon this Monroe Doctrine. So here we are, guys. We just took Maduro out to advance everything that Trump needs to do to keep this going. So that is the Trump corollary. And so you got to keep all this in mind when we see the meltdowns, when we see the false statements that we're now seeing and so on. Here's the perp walk of Maduro. Let's take a look at that really quick. Let me get to the right spot here. I'll show you the perp walk that took place, I do believe, yesterday. Yesterday? Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Here he is. He's in the Southern District of New York.
Good night. Good night. Happy New Year.
There you have it. A complete criminal. Now, do you really think that just as the citizens in Iran had begun attempting to overthrow their corrupt government, that we went into Venezuela at that moment by accident? I mean, Venezuela has been working with Iran, China, Russia, as we just discussed, in our own hemisphere to undermine our interests and security. And, it's a strange time when about the only voice of reason within our government is John Fetterman, but he's calling out the same thing. He's saying the same thing. Let me bring this down. Why is it locked? What in the world? There we go. So he says a larger truth transcends the world's force of good, democracy, and order. And this is Wall Street Journal. Iran's calculations are scrambled by U.S. raid in Caracas. So imagine you're Iran, Russia, China, and you go to bed, or whatever, or you're going about your day. I think they're on a different, obviously, time than us. And the next thing you know, you see the U.S. military swoop in and then out, and Maduro's arrested. What happens if you're those guys? Yeah, exactly. You are like, whoa, the military in America is not the same military, that you're used to. So look what Trump posted. I'm just sharing this because I thought it was so freaking hilarious. Take a look at this. This is so funny. 1 second. Oh, no, wait. Whoop, that's the wrong one. I guess I posted the wrong link. Oh, look at me. Look at me. Oh wait, no, that's the right link. I'm sorry. I was thinking it was a different one. I was gonna share that other one. He posted a video of
Found that there were
Maduro making fun of or saying "come get me" or whatever. But I don't remember if I added this one in because, like I said, this is already going to be a long show, and I'm already losing viewers. I see. Let me go ahead and play this. Trump posted this today. I'm going to fix this because that's really driving me nuts, guys. The fact that the names are cut off at the top is just driving me nuts. I don't know how that happened. It wasn't like that before. I must have overdid it or something. Here, let me fix that so you can see who posted this. I like giving people credit where it's owed for their posts. All right, so Trump just posted this. This is literally, I do believe, let's see. Let me get this off the screen.
were about 25,000 ballots.
Yesterday, January 3rd. Do you see what he's posting now that we've got Maduro? Watch.
Found that there were about 25,000 ballots that were not printed from the official Dominion PDF ballot. In other words, the printing process, appearance, is completely different than what you would get from a first-generation PDF printing.
We had approximately 25,000 ballots that were not created from the PDF that is used for the election process. So in other words, the election provider comes up with ballots, and it's specific to a geographical area, because the person that lives in this neighborhood might not be voting for the same people that live in that neighborhood or another neighborhood. So here in Maricopa County, from memory, you had 5,012 or something like that, just over 5,000 different permutations and combinations to the ballots. Then that's multiplied by 2 because there's a Spanish version that's available for each one of these ballots, but it's the same ballot with the same people, just in a different language. So we've got we'll just say 5,000 different ballots for now that are created ahead of time, and those are created in PDF. Now, the big reason why is that you have a third party send out mail-in ballots, so those have to be created in advance. And second, for your early voting, you have vote on demand. So in other words, even if I live way out in the corner of the county, but I work downtown, I could go to something downtown that could print my ballot from my area, and I could vote here. It's convenient. A lot of people do that. So these PDFs are created in advance. They're obviously good quality PDFs, and when they're printed, they should look roughly or exactly the same. In this group of ballots, I find that the quality is severely degraded from what a PDF would be as if printed on demand, or if printed by your third-party provider who prints these all the time.
I'm Eric Spakeen. I'm a forensic chemist and a forensic document analyst. That means I deal with all aspects of question documents, when they were made, if they've been altered, changed, or added to, and how long ink has been on paper. I was asked if I had experience in election matters to look at primarily printing processes, machine copied marks, CPS code, which is a counterfeit protection system. And I said that I did, and I traveled to Arizona with 3 other people from my office that I had. Number one is that there were a series of ballots that I examined the photographs of, and Dominion, as the election subcontractor, produced ballots for each of the zones or districts that were involved, at least in the area that I looked at here in Maricopa County. And there were 5,000 approximately, a little over, different ballots. As you know, in a state there could be 2 different senator races, there could be 10 different House races, and all the permutations and combinations is what gives you the 5,000. So they create a final ballot for each one of these districts or zones or regions, so that when you go in and you give your name and it knows you're from this area, you would get this ballot to vote on all the issues that pertain to you, and only the issues that pertain to you. And I found that there were about 25,000 ballots that were not printed from the official Dominion PDF ballot. In other words, the printing process, appearance.
Yep, and the fact that Trump just shared this the same day, well, what day did he take out Maduro? Was it the 2nd? Anyway, Trump shared this the exact same day or the day after that all happened. There's a reason that Trump posted this.
Is completely different than what you would get from a first-generation PDF printing. As you can imagine, the lines are perfect. So they're perfectly straight, no breaks in them, the circles or ovals as they may be, and they're a solid line. When I examined some of the early voting ballots and election day ballots from various polling locations, there were about 25,000 that did not have printing from this perfect PDF, as you would expect, but instead had breaks in all the same places around an oval. So you can look at one of the ovals and there are imperfections in the line, and they're in the same place on every single one of these ballots.
These 25,000 unidentifiable ballots alone represent over double the amount of Joe Biden's 10,457 vote mark.
In July of 21, actually before that, we told them in June, we told them that we suspected, from what we're seeing, 25,000 plus counterfeit, inauthentic ballots. That was early on in the process. Again, because of propaganda by the GOP's attorney, the GOP, other conservative operatives, they planted the seed inside this that you can't trust that, no, that's not it, etc. You'll hear more about it. But every one of the people up there knew this in advance, even of this hearing today. Now, the reason I bring that up is they had well over a year and a half to react to this so it wouldn't be duplicated in 2022. But they didn't. They did nothing, and they allowed it. They enabled this to be done again.
And there you have it. That is the facts, y'all. So he shared that for a reason. You may or may not know this, but Smartmatic ties back to Venezuela directly. There were some Venezuelan fellers that were involved in setting up Smartmatic that helped install Maduro the first time. So we've got that. Now, we need to have ourselves a little bit of a refresher, because there are things that, as you all know, we all forget. So here you go. Let's take a look at this really quick. This is from Real AF Patriot. It said, watch this 14-minute video. I don't think we're going to watch the full 14 minutes. You'll get the gist after the first minute or two. Take a listen to this, though.
Our first guest tonight has new
This is from 2020, by the way.
information regarding electoral fraud in the radical left's efforts to steal an election, and she charges 4 individuals as authors of what she calls a Pearl Harbor-style cyber attack on the 2020 presidential election. There are 4 names that she highlights. They are Jorge Rodriguez, the communications minister of Venezuela; Khalil Mazoub, Jorge Rodriguez's right-hand man; Gustavo Reyes Zumeta, who designed programs to rig election machines; and Antonio Mojica, the CEO of Smartmatic.
Let's stop it right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open Grok into a new tab. You can hear me type. I think I spelled that right. Which one is it that was arrested? Oh, okay, so that's the one. So take a look at these names here that have been recent U.S. Department of Justice acts since 2024 to involve indictments against other Smartmatic executives, primarily co-founder and president Roger Piñate, who were not mentioned here. Now, the reason that I want you to pay attention to this guy, I thought that he was arrested, but there's another reason we need to pay attention to him. Like Jorge Vasquez and Eli Moreno. So you recognize these last names are not the most American sounding names. Alleged bribery and money laundering related to contracts in the Philippines and possibly Venezuela. Do you see this? The charges did not include this guy, though. So let's take a listen to the rest here and see what we get.
An electoral voting corporation. Joining us now is Sidney Powell, distinguished attorney, former federal prosecutor, best-selling author, General Michael Flynn's defense attorney, and as we all know, a great American. Sidney, great to have you with us. You say these 4 individuals led the effort to rig this election. How did they do it?
Well, Lou, they designed and developed the Smartmatic and Dominion programs and machines that include a controller module that allows people to log in and manipulate the vote even as it's happening. We're finding more and more evidence of this. We now have reams and reams of actual documents from Smartmatic and Dominion, including evidence that they planned and executed all of this. We know that $400 million of money came into Smartmatic from China only a few weeks before the election, that there are George Soros connections to the entire endeavor. Lord Malloch Brown was part of it, along with the other people from Dominion. Eric Coomers, the person who also holds patents on some of the software and was operating out of the Denver office, I believe. We know that one of the Smartmatic people has went to Tarrant County, Texas, and turned that county blue after having been an executive with Smartmatic. And all of a sudden, this one election, Tarrant County is purportedly blue. We have evidence of how they flipped the votes, how it was designed to flip the votes, and that all of it has been happening just as we have been saying it has been.
So there you go. That's all you really needed to hear from this particular video. Now, if you recall, it was the CEO of Dominion who said, don't worry about the 2020 election. We have a plan in place. Do you remember this? Then, after 2020, when Trump went to fight in court because he could actually afford to do so, the judges refused to examine the evidence or enter it onto the record, refused to hear the cases. And how did the media frame that? They framed it as Trump loses in court again. How do you lose in court when the judge doesn't even hear your case? You don't, right? It just didn't happen. So that's the issue. What would have happened is if those judges entered that information into the record to hear the evidence in court, that information becomes public. Now you understand why they didn't want to hear the evidence in court or review the evidence in court or take the evidence in at all. So instead, there was a counter campaign from Dominion and obviously by default Smartmatic to take down anybody that was talking about this, if you recall, sue them. And that's where we are right now. We started hearing about, Georgia, 300K plus votes that, were fraudulently handled. But do you even remember this? This is from, oh my God, when is this even from? I almost think this is from 2011, but this says 20. Oh, yes. This is talking about 2020 in ours. I think this that you're looking at now is from like around 2011. This is in the Philippines. Don't worry, they're speaking English.
So what you're saying, what you're telling us is that the server is the one that dictates whether it will accept the message or not, irrespective of the time being used by the sender.
The server is not looking at the time, but rather the digital signatures and the contents of the package being generated by the PICO. So
But if that's the case, Mr. Chairman, what's the use of having a time as far as the PICO sender is concerned? What's the purpose of the time if that is immaterial?
The time gives you the sequence of the actions, and when you actually
but this, if I may interrupt, as Congressman Goles says, if this sequence can be delayed to 10 in the evening, what the heck? My God.
Sir,
your assurance was that anything that happens between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. would be reflected as 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I didn't know that 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. could be moved to 10 in the evening. Do you realize what a fool you have made,
sir,
of the legislators who passed this law?
I understand, sir. With all due respect, it's an unforeseen situation. It's one
unforeseen?
Yes, sir.
That was the principal guarantee that this would be an honest election. That we would know digitally what would happen during election day and during the election hours.
And you do, sir, if I may.
No, don't forget that. The sons of bitches. You had us standing here guaranteeing to the public and the world that even if fraud is committed, we would be able to trace it. We never said that fraud could not be committed. But you said we could trace it. And now you tell me that at 10 in the evening you could do it and we would never know.
No, sir. I stand by our product and we can
Son
trace
of a
everything
bitch.
that we do.
He seemed upset, huh? So anyway, one of the founders was arrested for money laundering and bribery and charges in the Philippines. Where you just saw this. This is old footage. I really think this is from, it might be from more recent than 2011, but I almost wonder if it is. But yeah, so there you have it, guys. The Smartmatic, which evolved from basically the Philippines, has been an issue, or not the Philippines, Venezuela has been an issue everywhere. So what did Joe Biden have to say about, Maduro in 2020? I want to refresh your memories about what Joe Biden had to say about Maduro and Trump. Let's take a look. Here you go. This is Joe Biden himself. On the anniversary of a hopeful moment, it's clear that Trump's Venezuela policy is a dead end. Millions are suffering with the Maduro regime still in power. This was on 2020, January 23rd. Any update here, Joe, says Matt Von Swole the other day. So he's bashing Trump about his Venezuela policy, right? Isn't it interesting that he was bashing Trump for his Venezuela policy? Let's take a look at this other post here. If it will paste, and here we go. Somebody else shared this underneath there. Trump talks tough on Venezuela, but admits thugs and dictators like admires thugs and dictators like Nicolas Maduro. As president, I will stand with the Venezuelan people for democracy. And what did he do? He upped his bounty. That was it. And the entire 4 years that this brainlet was in charge, whoever was running the country at that time, did nothing to help the Venezuelan people. But he's bashing Trump for not doing it, as you can see. So, there you have that. That was Joe Biden. What did Chuck Schumer, who's now attacking this as, this is an invasion, this is unconstitutional. What did he have to say back in 2020, y'all? Let's take a look.
He brags about all these things he wants to do or is doing, but his actions belie his words. Maybe the best metaphor was his claim to bring democracy to Venezuela. There was a big policy there. It flopped. If the policy was working, Juan Guaido wouldn't be in the balcony here. He'd be in Venezuela. He'd be sitting in the president's palace, or at least waging a fight to win. He's here. And the president brags about his Venezuela policy? Give us a break. He hasn't brought an end to the Maduro regime. The Maduro regime is more powerful today and more entrenched today than it was when the president began. He brags about all these things.
Isn't it interesting how the attacks on the boats in the international waters, the cartel boats, they came from a law that he wrote. This man on your screen right now wrote the law that allows for Trump to do that. But they're all screaming about Trump doing it. Why did you write the law then? Why was it an okay law back then, but when Trump takes advantage of the law you wrote, it's bad? Why was it bad that Trump hadn't taken action yet in 2020, thinking that he was going to be president for another 4 years, but then you guys use Venezuelan software to hijack an election? Why was it okay back then if he'd have done something to Venezuela, but it's not okay this year? Do you see the hypocrisy, guys? It's absolutely astonishing to watch these people in action. We'll get into some other people like that here in a little bit, but I wanted to show you this. This David Marcus guy points out a really, really, really good point. Yeah, he's always sweating. All these people are sweating right now. He says, airtight Pentagon leading up to the successful operation in Venezuela speaks well of Hegseth's internal media shakeup. That's when he pretty much said, look, guys, you can keep coming to the Pentagon, but you're not going to keep being allowed to have free reign here. You're going to have to stick to a specific area. You can't go in these areas. You can't do that. Sign this. Oh, and by the way, you're not allowed to, like leak stuff for pay that you might see or hear around here. And they just didn't want that. And there has been no leaks. But what's interesting is, after Trump pointed out at his press conference that the attack on Venezuela, he didn't clear anything with Congress because he doesn't really have to for this, and we'll get into that. But also, he's glad he didn't, because there would have been leaks. All of a sudden, you hear from the New York Times, and I can't even remember the other fake news word, that comes out and claims, oh, someone leaked to them, but they decided not to publish the story to protect the troops. If you believe that, I've got freaking beachfront property in Death Valley to sell you right now. That's what you call a psyop, okay? They're trying to gaslight Trump because he said what he said at that presser. No leaks. They want him to think that there's still leaks, because then, if there are still leaks, everything they did at the Pentagon is a moot point, right? Like, oh, you didn't really have to ban us. You still have people leaking to us, right? It's fake news, guys. I'm telling you right now, it's fake news. They're trying to get into the administration's head. The administration, I think, at this point, knows if there's anybody's leaking and who it is. So, like I said, they're just saying this to try to get in his head. The MSN has lost all of its credibility. Keep in mind, the New York Times, just at the end of last year, was the same outlet that was backing up Vanity Fair, claiming, oh yeah, we totally heard these recordings that Vanity Fair claims that they have of Susie Wiles' interview. We totally listened to them. So they're telling the truth. Okay, where are they? Why didn't you release them to the public? We've moved so far on beyond that outrage that, the fake MAGA influencers and the left, who always seem to align on things, and Thomas Massey and MTG and all these fakes, all seem to align on together, that nobody even remembers that we started to call for the well, let's hear the recordings. We're the public. You wrote this and told us this is how the interview is and that you have proof. Where's the proof? They never released those to this date. What does that tell you? It tells you that they're all liars, and the American people are well aware of it, guys. So the very Mexican sounding president of Mexico, Sheinbaum, talks a little shit on Trump. So Trump fired back, and this is what he had to say. Now, keep in mind, Sheinbaum is knee-deep in it with these cartels. Take a look at this. This is absolutely amazing. I love our president.
Well, it wasn't meant to be, and we're very friendly with her. She's a good woman, but the cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. And we could be politically correct and be nice and say, oh, yes, she is. No, she's very, she's very frightened of the cartels. They're running Mexico. And I've asked her numerous times, would you like us to take out the cartels? No, Mr. President. No, please. So we have to do something, because we lost. The real number is 300,000 people, in my opinion. They like to say 100,000. 100,000 is a lot of people, but the real number is 300,000 people. And we lost it to drugs, and they come in through the southern border, mostly the southern border. Plenty come in through Canada, too, by the way, in case you don't know. Yeah. But they come in through the southern border, and something's going to have to be done with Mexico. Well, it wasn't meant to be, and we're very friendly with her. She's a good woman.
If it would pause, he said the quiet part out loud, didn't he? He said she's working with the cartels, or basically allowing them to have free reign. I mean, oh, here it is. I did end up putting it in here to share with you. Trump posted this too. I just found this to be really funny. I wasn't sure if I put it in there because I knew this was going to be long. But look what he posted on Truth Social. This is hilarious. This is actual video of Maduro daring Trump.
Venga por mí. Aquí lo espero en Miraflores. No se tarde en llegar, cobarde.
I just got three things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine.
Venga por mí.
All right, now, really quick, because the fake MAGA influencers would have you believe that this is the end of the world, the Thomas Masseys of the world, the MTGs, we'll get to them later. Let's just look at comments. I'm glad we're celebrating victories again. All according to plan. Trust the plan. Boom. Democrats, crying Democrats should pace themselves. I haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. Everybody's on the side of President Trump. Here's somebody carving him into the side of. No, he needs his own mountain. He doesn't need to be on that one. He needs his own Mount Rushmore, just his head on it. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I see it. So, like I said, anybody with more than a single brain cell could predict all this. Democrats from Chuck Schumer to Thomas Massie, who I think is a Democrat. Sorry if you're a fanboy. All sided with Maduro. So let's point and laugh at Massie for just 1 second, because I hate this greasy son of a bitch. So let's take and point and laugh at him. Here he is. The Constitution, the founders, vested war-making power in Congress, not the executive branch, says Greasy Massie. And then he shares a video of himself crying on the floor of Congress, as he tends to do these days. And here he is again with this post. If this action were constitutionally sound, the Attorney General wouldn't be tweeting that they've arrested the president of a sovereign country and his wife for possessing guns in violation of a 1934 U.S. firearms law. They arrested him for cocaine as well, and drug smuggling and many other things. I think the machine gun charges, which I'll go through the charges in a bit here, but let's take a look at MTG. Let's see. I mean, she just like Thomas Massie hides behind her whatever that score is, or Liberty score, which is a joke in itself. Let's take a look at what MTG has to say. I'm sure it'll be positive.
And that's what Americans are absolutely sick and tired of. That was part of what they voted for in 2024. They voted to tear down the system that protects the rich, powerful elites. They voted to tear down the system that consistently goes for foreign wars and regime change. They voted to tear down the system that does nothing for regular, hardworking Americans and only consistently props up the big banks, the military-industrial complex, and the oil executives, and major industries. And, you want to know something? After this regime change in Venezuela, I fear that we're going to see jobs just move south, because we're already hearing about big corporations lining up their trips to Venezuela for the next big business opportunity that exists, while Americans sit here with no options that are going to provide them with good paying jobs and affordable health care.
And if she cared about any of that, she wouldn't be leaving Congress, correct? So let's take a look at what she had to say. And let me get rid of the stuff we've already looked at so that I don't start double. Let's take a look at what she had to say when Maduro stole the last election. Oh, let's just take a look. I mean, keep in mind, I should show you this. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't know if you read this, hypocritically says she fears American jobs will now be sent to Venezuela. MTG previously said she was against mass deportations because they'd hurt her construction business. She's a hypocrite and a traitor to America, and he's not wrong. So, yeah, and that did happen, if you recall. So let's look what she had to say last time Maduro won here. The poor people, and this is from 2024, mind you, July 29th. The poor people of Venezuela's election has been stolen by dictator Nicolas Maduro. Shutting the polls and stealing ballot boxes and many more tactics were used for Maduro to cling to power. You can vote your way into socialism or communism, but you have to fight your way out. Yeah. So, I mean, there she is literally saying you have to fight your way out, but it doesn't matter because now Trump, who she's decided to be a turncoat on, has helped them get out of that. Here is fat fuck Steve Bannon, who was one of the original leakers during Trump's first term. Let's listen to what this fraud has to say.
Is this harken back to our fiasco in Iraq under Bush, sir?
Well, it could be in a way worse, Steve.
Is this harken back to
You
our
can't even
fiasco?
You can't
in
even make
Iraq
this shit up. So this is just like Iraq, because like Iraq, we're still bombing Venezuela. I don't know if you've heard this. We're dropping bombs like all the time right now. We're just taking out major cities in Venezuela. There's troops all over the ground there. It's crazy. The war has escalated since the other day. Oh, that's right. None of that's happened. Here's what actually happened. Let me bring this up for you to look at so that you have a better comprehension of, not that you guys don't probably know this already, but you know, you can share this with people and they'll be able to see it. Let's take a look at this. All right, here we go. I have to open this one and close this one. There you go. This is what Trump did right here. Under Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, you know, the one that Thomas Massey claims that Trump is going against and everybody else, the president serves as the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States, which grants the president inherent authority to deploy military force. This authority allows the president to act in response to actual or imminent threats to safeguard U.S. personnel. This section outlines the president's powers, including the ability to seek written opinions from department heads, but the primary focus is on military command. Article 2, Section 2. What does that say right there? What does that say right here? This authority, I can't highlight it because it's this stupid MSN thing. This authority allows the president to act in response to actual or imminent threats to safeguard U.S. personnel. This applies to not only what happened the other night. See, what a lot of people aren't understanding is that it wasn't just the military on the ground. There was DEA agents, there was DOJ, a couple other like government branches, agents as well to carry out this warrant, the execution of the warrant that's been around since 2020. So what we're seeing is they came in, shut off the lights, literally, took out key areas militarily so that these people who were executing the warrant were safe. They then blasted open the door and was like, come with us. He couldn't even make it to his safe house or whatever. So that's why they used the military in this, to protect the personnel executing the warrant. Now, the other thing is that this is the same rule that the president can use, say, like, if we have a consulate and it comes under attack, Hillary Clinton, the president can send forces to help those people. So, yeah, it's legal, but they don't want you to know that because everything Trump does has to be illegal or it wouldn't be a day that ends in Y. So there you have it. That is the reality of it. The Constitution grants him the power to do that, whether they like it or not. That is the reality, and they're just going to have to deal with the fact that the Constitution exists. Now, the charges that they picked him up on were narco-terrorism, conspiracy, alleging that Maduro and others partnered with groups like the FARC, a designated terrorist organization, to traffic cocaine into the U.S. as a weapon against the nation. This carries a mandatory minimum of 20 years and a maximum of life in prison. She's not wishy-washy. She's always been a shill. MTG was sent to Congress to make us look dumb, okay? And when she realized her grift was kind of up and she was losing support because everybody was fed up with her not passing anything or not doing anything and just being useless, except to go on the news and make us look dumb, then she decided she's leaving. That and the fact that they're about to ban insider trading and stock and all that crap. Even though she claims she's for it, I think she's against it. She's gotten pretty rich since she's joined Congress. Conspiracy to import cocaine into the United States, accusing Maduro of leading or participating in a scheme to import thousands of tons of cocaine over decades, often under government protection. Possession of machine guns and destructive devices in furtherance of the drug crimes. Conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices. So, I also, now that you know this, right, the other argument is that, fentanyl isn't coming from Maduro. It's not coming from Venezuela. But Trump started bombing these boats in July of last year. Did you know that fentanyl deaths have dropped significantly since last year? Convenient, right? Closed the border, bombed the cartel boats, and it's amazing people aren't dying from fentanyl like they used to be. Now look, guys, I know most of you get that Trump makes no moves without making sure he can. I mean, he's got Raising Cane by his side. He knows what he's doing. I only said any of that other stuff, not for my core viewers, but just, for the new eyes that might see this later. So there you have it. It was legal. We've cut down fentanyl deaths all through the actions that Trump's taking. The same people in Congress who have been screaming about fentanyl deaths all these years are now mad that Trump's taking steps to reduce the deaths. So again, it's another one of those make it make sense moments, but that's where we're at. And like I showed you, it's all constitutional. There's nothing, and I showed you on another show how it was constitutional that he's blowing up the drug boats. So here's a little bit more from the loony left. I just wanted to show you this just for the laughs. Take a look at this idiot here. There we go. This guy is hilarious. So he shares this. This is Aaron Rupar. He's a lefty retard. So he says, Ruby on Russia, Ukraine. He shared this December 19th. It's not our war. It's a war on another continent. And then Ben Hodges here thought that was so great that he says Venezuela is on another continent. Now, technically, he's right, but Venezuela is part of the Americas. I guess he doesn't understand that. Venezuela is also in our hemisphere, which matters. So let's put this into perspective about how idiotic this guy actually is. I almost deleted the damn tab. That would have sucked. You see this map? This is us, okay? Right here. This is us, the United States of America. Here's Venezuela, okay? Now, just pointing out, not only are we really close by water with our little friend Cuba here, who's also joined with all these shady places like Colombia and so on, we are connected by land, whether people want to realize this or not. You just follow this right here, and it goes right up into the United States. So if an invading country like China, Russia, or something ever wanted to set up shop in Venezuela and then take us over from the south, it wouldn't be that hard to start to do that, would it? And to avoid all that, let's just make sure that doesn't happen. Don't you agree? I'm just saying it makes more sense. Anyway, so yeah, he's technically right. It's a different continent, but it's in our hemisphere, and that's where the Monroe Doctrine comes in. When you've got these people taking over continents in our hemisphere that are attached by land and really close by sea, technically, I guess you could say attached by sea, you need to do something about that. So that's that moron. And then we've got, let me get this readjusted here. We've got a couple more politicians. I'm just going to kind of scroll through my bookmarks. I bookmarked some real idiots here. And we will take a look at what some of them have to say. Alrighty, we did the MTG. This guy, Chris Murphy's been losing his mind about this. He kind of needs to. His party, they've been engaged in sedition. So take a listen to this idiot.
Is not a security threat to the United States. They're not threatening to invade us. There is no terrorist group like Al Qaeda operating there that has plans to attack the United States.
The drug cartels are terrorist groups now. These same cartels are taking over apartment buildings in Colorado and other places, Chicago and so on. He lives in a gated community in a mansion, so he doesn't give a shit about any of this. Yeah, she definitely is there to try to make us look stupid. Let's let him go on.
To the extent that you care about the drug trade, yes, they produce drugs, but those drugs go to Europe. Fentanyl is the drug that's killing Americans. That's not coming from Venezuela. Venezuela produces...
And didn't we just talk about this? Fentanyl deaths have dropped since last year, since bombing these boats, blocking off the border so that it's all stopped up. It's coming to America to kill. All these drugs are going to Europe. Yeah, they're getting on a freaking cigar boat with 3 engines to go to Europe. Yep.
This is cocaine. 90% of it is not coming to the United States. This seems to be mostly about oil and natural resources. Donald Trump's entire foreign policy is corrupt. Russia, the Middle East, and now Venezuela is all about making money for his friends. And Wall Street, the oil industry, they can make a lot of money off of Venezuela if they run it. You saw within hours of the invasion the announcement of a group of Wall Street investors, energy industry investors, planning a trip to Venezuela to make money off of this invasion, off of this ouster. So unfortunately, once again, you're seeing that this president's foreign policy, the invasion of Venezuela, the ouster of Maduro, is about making his crowd filthy rich. It has nothing to do with American national security. Venezuela.
So they keep calling this an invasion. Let me see if I can bring that. I think it was this grok that I used. Let me yeah, there we go. So here's where this conversation ends up. I was trying to get the definition of invasion. They give you a few examples. 1983 U.S. invasion of Grenada. U.S. forces entered to overthrow the government and rescue hostages. Major combat lasted days with full withdrawal by December 1983. They go on and list a couple others. So I said, well, they're calling the arrest of Maduro and the plan to allow Venezuelans to finally vote for a leader in a free election an invasion. LOL. To me, it was not. Grok says, you're correct. The events surrounding Nicolas Maduro's removal don't fit the classic definition of a military invasion involving conquest or prolonged occupation. On January 3rd, 2026, U.S. forces conducted a targeted, short-duration military operation in Caracas described as a large-scale strike with airstrikes to disable air defenses, followed by a helicopter-borne raid. The primary objective was to capture Maduro and his wife, and no U.S. troops, blah, 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 blah. So, as we discussed earlier, a military invasion typically involves forceful entry with broader aims like conquest and sustained control, often leading to occupation. This operation more closely resembles and remember this term, special forces raid or extraordinary rendition, similar to the 1989 U.S. action in Panama to arrest Manuel Noriega, which was also controversial but not classified as a full invasion leading to occupation. So these people are intentionally using the term invasion for a reason, because it's hyperbolic. We don't have any troops on the ground there still. We haven't been back with the military. Nothing has happened, but they're still melting down about it. And as I showed you at the beginning regarding Smartmatic and so on, I think we have finally figured out why that might be. I think they're nervous. If you want my honest opinion, I think they're nervous right now. So that was this idiot. Then we had, we'll get into some of these other tabs. There we go. Here we go. Here's Chuck Schumer now. You saw him before. Listen to him now.
So what can the Congress do about it is the next question.
Well, the next question is very simple. And that is that we have the War Powers Act. That's a privilege resolution, which means the Republicans can't block it. Tim Kaine and I and Rand Paul are sponsors of it. It's going to come to the floor this week. And if it is voted for, if it's voted positively in both houses, then the president can't do another thing in Venezuela without the okay of Congress. We have to pass it.
So what can the Congress do?
So as you can see, they started this last year, right, with the boats. So they're trying to pass this War Powers Act, and if it's not Thomas Massey, it's Rand Paul, right? It's, two jerk-offs. But anyway, so they're going to try to pass this War Powers Act. We'll see if that will pass. However, the problem with that is I just showed you the Constitution. Nothing Trump has done would be affected by the War Powers Act. He's not declaring war. There was no war. There was an incursion to execute a warrant, period. And the people executing the warrant needed protection, and that is within his powers. They can't take that away. It's in the Constitution. So, yeah, these people are absolutely retarded. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, too. But that's just some of them. Here's Tim Kaine. You just heard him mention on the War Powers Act thing.
I think a lot of Republicans would dispute, the notion that this was an invasion at all. But moreover, if Democrats cared so much about process, why didn't they do anything to bring Maduro to justice when they were in charge? I mean, the guy's been under indictment since 2020.
There have been sanctions placed against Venezuela, and I'll admit the sanctions have not been as effective.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny to you? Trump sanctioned the shit out of Russia, and that wasn't good enough for them. He was still Putin's puppet. He was still working with the Kremlin. He belonged to Russia, despite all the sanctions. The sanctions weren't enough. Trump needed to, do something to get Putin out of there. But now, when it comes to their little, voting machine haven here, now all of a sudden sanctions are just fine. Yeah, maybe they didn't work good enough, but we did sanctions. Oh, and we upped the bounty and then did nothing with it. Who's going to take that bounty on Maduro? Is there some guy in Montana that was going to head down there and just go take Maduro out and bring him in a frickin', some bag over his shoulder like it's the 1800s and he's a bounty hunter? It's not going to happen. It was all for show. It was all for show. Trump isn't all for show.
As they might have been. And you know why, Jackie? Because many other nations wouldn't join us in the sanctions, even though they've joined us in sanctions against other nations. And why wouldn't they? They didn't like the President Trump, in his first term, threatening military action against Venezuela. And that caused them to back off support for sanctions. So sanctions and going into international forums and trade restrictions and embargoes and seizing vessels that are pursuant to sanction with a court order, these are things that can work. It's a lot better if you have your allies with us. What we've done now is push our allies away, and we've opened up.
I mean, I think the point I'm getting to, sir, the point I'm getting to is, don't you think that America's adversaries take note when all Democrats can muster is a joint statement or a press conference or some sanctions that are, loose, and take advantage of that? And that's why the administration feels
Jackie,
positioned to do this now?
Bingo. She hit him pretty hard, I'd say. Now, this is what poor Marco Rubio here. I don't think I put these in my links here, so I just wanted to show you. This is how it was handled. Here's Meet the Press.
Need to take over the Venezuelan oil industry.
Well, we don't need to. First of all, let me go back up. We don't need Venezuela's oil. We have plenty of oil in the United States. What we're not going to allow is for the oil industry in Venezuela to be controlled by adversaries of the United States. You have to understand, why does China need their oil? Why does Russia need their oil? Why does Iran need their oil? They're not even in this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States.
Have specific oil companies?
We also want to see that oil and the proceeds from it. Hold on. We want to see the oil proceeds of that country benefit the people of Venezuela. Why have 8 million people left Venezuela? 8 million, the single largest mass migration probably in modern history, left Venezuela since 2014 because all the wealth of that country was stolen to the benefit of Maduro and his cronies in the regime, but not to the benefit of people of Venezuela. You know how destabilizing 8 million migrants is? The number one fear that Brazil has, that Colombia has, that all these countries in the region have about what's happening in Venezuela and our involvement is they're afraid of another mass migration event. That's what they fear. This is deeply destabilizing stuff. It's not going to continue to happen. They are not going to come from outside of our hemisphere, destabilize our region in our own backyard, and us have to pay the price for it. Not under President Trump.
Let's talk big picture.
And if that's not bad enough, look at George Slopadopoulos.
He said the United States is going to run Venezuela. Under what legal authority?
Well, first of all, what's going to happen here is that we have a quarantine on their oil. That means their economy will not be able to move forward until the conditions that are in the national interest of the United States and the interest of the Venezuelan people are met. And that's what we intend to do. So that leverage remains. That leverage is ongoing. And we expect that it's going.
That is the Monroe Doctrine.
Going to lead to results here. We're hopeful that it does, positive results for the people of Venezuela, but ultimately, most importantly for us, in the national interest of the United States. We will no longer have, hopefully, as we move forward here, we'll set the conditions so that we no longer have in our hemisphere a Venezuela that's the crossroads for many of our adversaries around the world, including Iran and Hezbollah, is no longer sending us drug gangs, is no longer sending us drug boats, is no longer a narco-trafficking paradise for all those drugs coming out of Colombia to go in through the Caribbean and towards the United States. And obviously, we want a better future for the people of Venezuela. We want them to have an oil industry where the wealth goes to the people, not to a handful of corrupt individuals and stolen by, pirates all over the world. That's what we're working towards, and we intend to use the leverage we have to help achieve that.
Let me ask the question again. What is the legal authority for the United States to be running Venezuela?
Well, I explained to you what our goals are and how we're going to use the leverage to make it happen. As far as what our legal authority is on the quarantine, I'm very simple. We have court orders. These are sanctioned boats, and we get orders from courts to go after and seize these sanctions. So I don't know, is a court not a legal authority?
So is the United States running Venezuela right now?
Well, I've explained once again. I'll do it one more time. What we are...
I feel like old Georgie needs hearing aids.
Our running is the direction that this is going to move moving forward, and that is we have leverage. This leverage we are using and we intend to use. We started using already. You can see where they are running out of storage capacity. In a few weeks, they're going to have to start pumping oil unless they make changes. And that leverage that we have with the armada of boats that are currently positioned allow us to seize any sanctioned boats coming into or out of Venezuela, loaded with oil or on its way in to pick up oil, and we can pick and choose which ones we go after. We have court orders for each one. That will continue to be in place until the people who have control over the levers of power in that country make changes that are not just in the interest of the people of Venezuela, but are in the interest of the United States and the things that we care about. That's what we intend to do. The legal authority is the court orders that we have.
When the president was asked yesterday who will be running Venezuela, he said it was you, he said it was the defense secretary, he said it was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Are you running Venezuela right now?
George, I've explained again that the leverage that we have here is the leverage of the quarantine. So that is a Department of War operation, conducting, in some cases, law enforcement functions with the Coast Guard on the seizure of these boats. I'm obviously very intricately involved in these policies. And by the way, very intricately involved in moving forward and what we hope to see some of these changes being addressed. Unfortunately, the person that was there before, who was not the legitimate president of the country, was someone we could not work with, was someone that we could not. He had already suckered the Biden administration a couple of years ago on a deal he didn't keep, and this is someone we simply couldn't work with. We are hopeful that there are people in place now. We're going to find out. The proof will be in what they do or fail to do, that will start making some of these changes that will ultimately lead to a Venezuela that looks substantially and dramatically different from what's been in place for 15 years. But our number one objective is America. We care about Venezuela. We want it to do well moving forward. But our number one objective here is America. No more drugs, no more trained at agua gangs coming our direction, and no more an area of the country in our hemisphere that becomes a crossroads for every single adversary we have around the world. Hezbollah, Iran, all of them have turned it into their playground. That can't and will not continue under this administration.
He said,
and there you have it. You can't get any simpler than that. That's an America First policy. That right there is an America First policy. I don't know what else you'd call it. Now, let's listen to what Venezuelans have to say on the matter, since Americans are such experts. Take a look at this. We'll only do a few of these.
Y le pido a todos que tengan fe, no sé dónde ir a salir, pero le pido a todos que tengan fe, que no se dejen llenar la cabeza de que los gringos solo quieren el petróleo, y los gringos solo quieren
All right,
su
I'm just going to
riqueza.
translate this for you. So it says right up front, Venezuela man, those who say that the U.S. is only interested in oil, I ask you, what do you think the Russians and Chinese wanted here? The recipe for arapas? So that's what he actually says. I forgot it was in Spanish, or whatever. So here we go. Here's another one. This is how Venezuelans feel. Take a look at this.
States military into Venezuela last night to kidnap Maduro and his wife to somewhere. We don't know where they are. We don't know if they're alive. And now Trump has announced that the U.S. is going...
We actually do know where they are, and we do know that he's alive. He's in the Southern District of New York in jail.
...to temporarily take over control and operations of Venezuela.
White liberals in America are complaining about Nicolas Maduro, while Venezolanos in Venezuela are out celebrating that their dictator is gone. If this doesn't tell you how evil and disturbed white liberals in America are, I don't know what will. They're willing to allow an entire country to be exploited as long as it fits their political agenda and goes against Trump. Think about that. Nicolas Maduro publicly rigged elections, killed his own people, had actual re-education camps, made anybody who opposed him disappear. And this is who they're defending now. Believe me, I was worried when Trump said that the United States would oversee the transition of power in Venezuela. But here's a reality that no one wants to admit. Maduro didn't just destroy Venezuela. He destroyed the entire system of checks and balances. He replaced the courts, institutions, everything with loyalists. This isn't one bad leader. This is a government gutted from within. Because of this, if we don't step in, the people who committed the corruption will be the exact same ones choosing who investigates it. The power is not going to return to the people. It'll just rotate to another loyalist from the same corrupt machine. But when these people say stay out, they're not saying stay out because it benefits Venezuelans or they care about what happens to them, because clearly Maduro was the worst thing that could have happened to him. Maduro was getting rich while starving his own people. A credible transition isn't about America controlling Venezuela. It's about preventing a total collapse. It's about less violence, fewer mass migrations, and giving Venezolanos a chance to stay in the country they love instead of being forced to flee from it. scrutinize everything. Go ahead. Absolutely. I encourage it. But pretending that walking away fixes anything, that's how failed states stay failed states.
Bingo. Smart woman. And also I'm going to point out as well that, Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that jobs are going to go back down there. In a way, she's right, because Venezuelans are already talking about going back home. I think at this stage, I think it's a little early to do so. But they're all talking about going home. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to lose Venezuelans by the millions. There's some people that were interviewed. I don't know if I've got them in this link, but I remember one of these Venezuelan guys. He's like, yeah, no, not all of us want to go home or can go home. We've got kids that were raised here. They're in school here, blah, blah, blah. He said, but I'd say 80 to 90% of us are going to go home. Are you okay with 80 to 90% of, refugees who were actually legitimate refugees, obviously, because they want to go home now that their country has been given back to them on some level? Are you okay with them leaving? I sure as heck am. I got no issues with Venezuelans that aren't, Tren de Aragua, but at the same time, we could do with less people in our country taking up our resources. No offense to a Venezuelan, but we could. We've already got issues with Somalians and actual Americans who drain the system. We don't need refugees as well. I'm just saying. I know that some people would look at that as being cold-hearted or harsh, but what she was referring to as well with Maduro, I did save a bookmark of that. Let me scroll down here. Right here. This was from 2019, if you recall. This right here was from 2019, if you recall. In Venezuela. After he stole the election. Watch that vehicle in the front. You guys remember this, right? And that's from Sean Farish there. I can unbookmark that now. But I just wanted to show you that. That's the man that the left is now currently trying to say is the victim in all this. The man who runs his people over with vehicles. Meanwhile, they make it sound like that's what Trump's doing here, when all he's trying to do is make life better for all Americans. Okay? Make it make sense, guys. This is some more Venezuelans.
Salí de Venezuela por eventos traumáticos horribles. Cuando yo salí en plena decadencia, cuando la gente solo comía mangos, yo vi a un amigo mío comer perros allá. Es increíble. Yo no sé por qué aquí hay personas con banderas de Venezuela. Son venezolanos. ¿Saben lo que pasa en Venezuela? Es como cuando tienen las banderas de Cuba. ¿Saben lo que pasa en Cuba? La esposa de mi papá es cubana y ella me dice las cosas tan horrendas que pasaron allá. Dios mío, ¿en serio pueden culpar a... Está bien, se inventan el capitalismo, todo esto, pero es increíble lo que pasa. Dios mío, ¿cómo puede ser que estas personas estén acá defendiendo a un dictador que tiene el helicoide, el centro de tortura más grande de Latinoamérica? Salí de Venezuela.
There you have it. He saw people who, friends who eat dogs to survive and doesn't understand how they defend the dictator. There's a, what is that called? It's a syndrome or something where you identify with your capture. You know what I'm saying? That's what you would call that. But yeah, it happens. It happens. And then, the Maduro regime captures people as well. And then they start working for them as propagandists and other things. And we've got this right here. Take a listen to this guy. He's pissed off.
Venezuela. I'm Venezuelan. People are criticizing Trump for what he did in Venezuela. They say he bombed and kidnapped our president. No. Let me be clear. That man was never our president. He's a dictator. We didn't vote for him. Our elections were stolen. And when we protested, our kids were sent to prison. Minors were tortured. Girls were forced to prostitute themselves in prisons just to get food, to get a piece of bread. And where were all of you then? Where were all of you, liberals? Where were all of you? Where were all of you? You said nothing. You did nothing. But now you suddenly care about international law? Now you all talk about human rights? Maduro didn't lead Venezuela. He kidnapped an entire country. So, no, Trump didn't kidnap anyone. No, He did not. He removed our kidnapper. And for that, we're thankful. You can divide politics all you want, but don't tell Venezuelans, do not tell Venezuelans how to feel about being free from a dictatorship.
Good Lord, that was one angry gay guy. But yeah, so, I mean, you can see, I mean, I got a ton of links of these people celebrating in the streets and so on. I'll just start speeding through these. But these people in this particular cut here, they are cheering that they can now go home, that it's safe to go home. Here's some more footage from that. Celebrating the liberty in their country again. Now, some of Maduro's regime is still in charge, guys. That's why I say I'm not 100% sure that it's safe for them to go home just yet, but they should go home. I mean, people need to start fighting for their country. You know what I'm saying? Here's more images from Miami where they were celebrating again, because these people don't necessarily want to be in America, and I'm good with that. You're probably good with that. We should all be good with that. They were here as refugees, and now they can go home. Here's more. Here's just a few other songs.
Que no ha parado de llorar desde que llegó. Viene en pijama, como lo pueden ver, todavía ella está. La veo muy emocionada llorando. ¿Cómo se siente? Cuéntanos por qué llora.
You can hear the people celebrating.
It just was the right time to.
And here's this one. So you can see that they are very ecstatic about everything that's happening right now. So why would liberals be, you know, they go on and on about the oppressed and these classes. This is the guy I was telling you about. Listen to this.
Does this give you kind of hope for the future of Venezuela?
Oh, yes.
Did you ever go back to Venezuela? You ever go visit?
Oh, yes. If Venezuela be the Democrats coming back, I go back
Stockholm
to my country.
So you want to go back to your country? If
Oh,
democracy
yes,
does
of
come
course. I want to go back.
Awesome.
Because I think in the same way how I feel, I think it's so many people in the world, including United States, they want to go back to Venezuela.
Do you think that that's the majority of kind of the consensus among Venezuelans that are living here in America? If democracy is actually restored to Venezuela, freedom and safety,
oh, yeah,
that they'll want to go back to their country?
Oh, yeah. I be sure. Maybe no 100% going back because they had children right here, they growing and right here. But I be sure 90% they go back, 80% they go back.
And there you have it. I mean, that's he said exactly what I told you. He said 80 or 90% they go back. Then we've got this here. They're ripping down his image in Venezuela. People are happy, clapping. And then we've got this here. Let me show you this. I think this is, where is this at? They're doing the Trump dance, the Venezuelans are now. That's hilarious. So there you have it. The Venezuelans are happy, but what about the Democrat protesters? People are starting to notice some things about the protests that erupted within 24 hours. We'll start here, though. See these signs? Take a look at these signs. They're pre-printed. Workers.org. Do you see that? Workers.org. That's socialist. You see the other printed signs behind it? So this is coming from Wall Street Apes. Expose the hands-off Venezuela protest taking place in New York City, supporting Nicolas Maduro, is being organized by the People's Forum. The People's Forum is an NGO that has received over $20 million from billionaire who lives in China with ties to the CCP. The NGO's primary funding, over $20 million, Neville Roy Singham. Singham's residence is Shanghai. His business ties are to the CCP. He attends CCP-related events. He funds media outlets echoing Chinese state narratives. And they, of course, would love to enact socialism here because it would destroy America. And they know it would destroy America, which is the same reason that these same people are paying to push the transgender ideologies and all these things. They all go hand in hand. So he says, check this out. This is also Wall Street Apes. They're getting sloppy. 4 protests in 4 different states. Pay very close attention to the solid white signs with black letter writing. And so there it is. See, this is how they operate, folks. And you almost have, in the cities where New York, Chicago, Orlando, Boston, you almost have to wonder, do they have pre-printed signs in a warehouse, just made up signs already for just about anything that Trump may or may not do, that they can then just get out that fast? Or are they working with like these printing people, or these people in the movement have printing? It happens fast. And the fact that all the signs look exactly the same tells you they're talking behind the scenes. Here are New Yorkers gathering outside of the MDC detention center. Now, we just heard a liberal say, we don't even know where Maduro is, but they know where to gather to defend Maduro, which is interesting. Again, that nothing they say makes sense, but here we go. We want justice, you say. This lady is literally holding a sign that is calling him the people's president. Same signs, guys. And we'll get into the oil thing, and then we'll wrap this up here. But I just wanted to show you all this nonsense. Nothing that the left does is organic or natural, ever. This is interesting. Venezuela. This is in Venezuela. A Venezuelan mother, no, it's not. A Venezuelan mother and her son disrupted a paid far left pro-Maduro protest in Puerto Rico, which is located close to Venezuela, saying they have waited 26 years for this moment. Her son added that there was not a single Venezuelan among the Maduro protesters. Now, we all know that Puerto Rico is a leftist shithole. That's why they, want to make it an actual, just full on everything. So here we go. Take a look at this. This is interesting. I don't know that we're going to understand what she's saying, but.
26 años. 26 años llevamos esperando este momento. Ustedes vieron los que dicen llamar la paz. No, asesinos ustedes. Te nombro 4. Papi, quiero dejar algo claro. Aquí no hay ni un venezolano.
So they're pissed off. I mean, you can't blame them. They've been wanting to go home forever. Trump rescue, and then all of a sudden there's not even mass protests, let's be real, but just idiots out in the streets with pre-printed signs, even in that area. Elon's doing this for them. I thought this was pretty cool, and it was worth sharing. Through Starlink, he has gone ahead and he says, in support of the people of Venezuela, Starlink is providing free broadband service to the people of Venezuela through February 3rd, ensuring continued connectivity, as things stabilize and so on. And we'll see what happens, obviously. But at the end of the day, we're winning, guys. Like, this is a win for America, no matter who wants to spin it, how they want to spin it. It doesn't matter. We're winning. You got people believing this is about oil. You saw it on their signs. There's people on the right saying the same thing. Even if it is about oil to some degree, you heard Marco Rubio. It's not for us. We don't need their oil. Take a look at this. Let me bring this up. Boop, 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 boop. And I'm over here, regular news tab. I'm trying to get through this for you guys because I know we've been going a while here. So the U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, projects that in 2025, the USA will produce more oil than it imports, with crude oil production averaging 13.41 million barrels per day. This increase is attributed to the country's significant oil production from the Permian Basin and overall growth in U.S. energy exports. The EIA's projections indicate that the U.S. crude oil production will surpass imports, reflecting the country's robust oil production capabilities and global demand for U.S. oil products. So why would we need Venezuela's oil when we're already producing more than we're importing? We don't. Did you know that? Did you know that in 2025 we were doing that? Nobody's reporting on it. And here's the reason we're not interested in their oil. It won't lower our prices, and here's why. Right here. Venezuela's oil is not considered high grade anymore due to a combination of factors, including persistent problems in the energy sector, domestic mismanagement, and foreign sanctions. This country's oil production and market share have significantly shrunk since 2015, leading to a decline in both production and export levels. This has changed the country's position on oil gas industry, blah, 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 blah. But it's not the best oil. It's heavy oil. It's oil that you have to put more additives into because it's so heavy. It's harder to get out of the ground. So it's not worthless per se. Venezuela worked out deals with U.S. oil producers who transported all over the world and then transported all over the world. And then what happened is Chavez and others started pretty much just not maintaining everything. They basically kind of took the oil fields away. Some would argue that's not the case. But let's take a listen to this video right here. Take a look at this right here. Before we get moving on. There. Boop. There we go. Listen to Pete Hegseth, okay? Listen to what he has to say so that you can get kind of a grip or grasp on things. They're all on board with everything that Trump's planning to do because it's a great idea. Listen,
it's going to look like American strength. It's going to look like options for President Trump. It's going to look like protecting American interests and ensuring they're advanced, stopping drugs, ensuring that ultimately the oil resources are, he said it clearly at the podium today. We're going to get American companies in there. We're going to get investment there. These oil depots have been operating at 20% capacity. That's going to change. And we're going to stop the flood of people into the United States. It's a good day.
Mr. Secretary, we'll end it on that. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back in a moment with the CBS Evening News.
There you go. We're going to stop the flood of people. There won't be refugees if Venezuela is back and running, correct? Correct. So then we've got this right here. Take a listen to this guy here. He is, according to this Fletch 17, local citizen journalist in Venezuela, and he's saying it's not about the oil. He's going to run through the entire history of why this isn't about the oil. Take a listen.
So this is the comment I keep seeing. Oil. They don't care about Maduro. They want the oil. Oil is the goal. It's all about oil. Oil, oil, oil. Okay, so let's talk about that. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on Earth. Its reserves are 13% bigger than Saudi Arabia's. But not all oil is the same. Saudi oil is light and easy to refine. Venezuelan oil is extremely heavy, thick, difficult to process, and only certain refineries in the world can handle it. Oil was discovered in Venezuela in the 1920s, and the US was immediately involved. American oil companies literally built Venezuela's oil industry because the country didn't have the infrastructure or the technology to do so. At the time, Venezuela was a poor country with an agrarian economy. It was mostly coffee and cacao plantations. There were no petroleum engineers, no heavy machinery, zero knowledge on how to run a global oil industry. But by 1928, with lots of help from US oil companies, Venezuela was one of the world's top exporters. Overnight, Venezuela became one of the richest countries in the world. During the 1970s, Arab states imposed an oil embargo on the United States because of its support of Israel. This led global oil prices to explode, soaring from $1.80 a barrel to over $11 a barrel, a 500% increase. That crisis shook the entire world economy. That is, except for Venezuela, which suddenly saw billions of dollars worth of oil revenue entering its state coffers. And right after that, in 1975, Venezuela nationalized its oil industry and created PDVSA, Petróleos de Venezuela, or Venezuelan Petroleum, the state-owned company that still exists today. But even after the nationalization of its oil industry, Venezuela still needed the US. Why? Because the US Gulf Coast has huge refineries built specifically for heavy crude, the type of oil that sits under Venezuela. And this arrangement benefited both sides. Venezuela, a country roughly the size of Texas, doesn't have anywhere near the refining infrastructure needed to process hundreds of thousands of barrels of heavy crude oil per day. Venezuela's own refineries can only handle a fraction of what the country extracts, so US refineries processed it. Venezuela got billions in revenue, and American companies profited from the refining operations. Everyone had a reason to keep the partnership going. But without heavy crude, those U.S. refineries struggle. They literally hunger for Venezuelan oil. Now, there's this big misconception that Hugo Chavez, the populist and self-proclaimed socialist president of Venezuela, who died in 2013, took back the industry from the U.S. private interests that controlled it. But that's simply not true. Chavez became hostile to the U.S. politically, yes, but he still depended on the U.S. market. Venezuelan oil continued flowing to American refineries, and Chavez took advantage of the largest oil boom in history, gaining access to billions of dollars in oil revenue. What Chavez did do was purge PDVSA, the state oil company. He fired thousands of expert workers and replaced them with loyalists. Corruption exploded, production collapsed, and the economy imploded. When Chavez died in 2013, he handpicked this man, Nicolás Maduro, as his successor. Maduro inherited a country that was collapsing economically and made it worse, much worse. By 2017, 76 out of 84 PDVSA plants were paralyzed. Venezuela's oil production fell to 20% of its total capacity. Now, I can already hear you in the comments saying, that's because of sanctions, but no, not yet at least. Before 2019, U.S. sanctions only targeted individual Venezuelan officials, human rights abusers, narco-traffickers, and corrupt elites. Venezuela was still completely free to sell its oil to the United States. And it did. The first oil sanctions only came in 2019, under Trump's first presidency. He basically imposed an embargo on PDVSA, the Venezuelan state oil company. Ironically, this hurt U.S. companies too, because they lost access to the heavy crude their refineries are specifically built for. So why sanction PDVSA if American companies hated it? Well, because Maduro suspended elections and was consolidating a dictatorship in Venezuela. The sanctions weren't about oil, they were about politics. It was a move to support the political opposition in Venezuela, which had won an election that Nicolás Maduro refused to accept. So where does that leave us right now? 6 years later, Maduro is completely broke and running out of options. They rely on drug trafficking and illicit activities to survive. Maduro, more than Trump, funnily enough, desperately wants the U.S. companies to reestablish their operations in Venezuela. 2 weeks ago, Maduro even offered Trump all of Venezuela's resources, including all...
Do you remember that? This video is, a little older at this point. This was before Trump even went in. But do you even remember that? He showed you the headline. Trump turned down Maduro's offer. Why? Because we don't really need it. Now, do they need it to rebuild? Yes. Do our refineries down south, could they be involved and make a little money by refining it, sending it back for them to sell? Of course. But we don't care. It has nothing to do with that. Smartmatic, the Monroe Doctrine, all these other factors are playing into this. We just kicked China and everybody that's been trying to get their little fingers into Venezuela for strategical reasons, not just oil, by the way. They just saw one of the most smooth operations carried out, and the corrupt leader that they've been working with taken out of his house in the middle of the night with no deaths, despite what the Maduro regime says. And, well, no deaths from civilians. And just in and out, boom, gone. Couple hours and everything was over.
All the oil, and also to reduce economic ties with China and Russia, if Trump would just leave him alone. So if it was just about oil, Trump could have just accepted Maduro's offer, but he didn't. So no, it's not just about oil. Oil is just a piece of the story, but it's not the whole story. And you might be thinking, okay, Alex, but if it's not about oil, what is it about? Why is the US about to attack Venezuela? And if you did think that, thank you for asking, because I'll break that down in my next videos. Follow along if you want to.
And there you go. And now we know, because I broke it down in this video. So that is what was actually going on. Now, I do feel that it's important that everyone, if you haven't heard by now, you need to understand what's going to happen next in New York. I mean, I'm surprised it wasn't Judge Boasberg that got the case, but this is who got it. This is coming from Tony Lane. The Maduro case is heading for a Clinton-appointed judge. Meet Alvin Hallerstein, 92 years old, appointed by Bill Clinton, and a judge who has ruled against Trump in the past. Now, this judge is set to oversee one of the most explosive international criminal cases in decades. This raises serious questions. Is this about justice or politics? Can the public expect neutrality, Why this judge at this moment? The courtroom just became the story. What do you think about this? So at the end of the day, whether Maduro is found guilty of cocaine charges and these other charges or not does not matter. We got, if I suspect he's probably singing like a bird. Supposedly, if you recall, he'd already told Trump that Maduro had already told Trump on one of his calls that, yeah, Biden and him worked out a deal to let his criminals into this country and so on. This was weeks ago. And now we have Smartmatic information possibly as well when we went in. That's my best guess. So I'm not too worried if he gets found guilty. Would it be an added bonus? Yes, of course, it would be an added bonus. But at the end of the day, is he going to be president again? No, he's not. So let's take a look at reality. I think it's more accurate. Like I feel like this is the most accurate post that you're going to see. And then I've got one more thing to show you and we can wrap up. As far as the VP that has taken over, this guy says right here, Delcy Rodriguez and the core of the regime's leadership are negotiating with the United States as we speak. This is not a sudden pivot. It is a result of the conclusion reached in Washington over months. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even put it up on the dang screen here. Over months, the U.S. does not believe that Maria Corina Machado and the opposition have the operational capacity to seize power in Venezuela because they do not control or meaningfully fracture the military. If they did, power would have shifted immediately after the 2024 presidential election. It did not. For a long period, U.S. officials, including Marco Rubio, were in constant communication with Machado and her team. They were asked repeatedly for proof of a concrete plan, not just to win power symbolically, but to retain it in practice, chain of command, military alignment, institutional control, day after governments. The answers were consistently evasive, justified by security concerns, but never substantiated. At this point, from the U.S. government's perspective, the opposition ceased to look like a viable transition mechanism and began to look like a political wager with no enforcement arm. This plan, or the plan on the table for the Delcy Rodriguez to stabilize the country with U.S. backing and then call for general elections, this is not framed as an endorsement of the regime, but as a containment and transition strategy. Washington is explicit about one thing. This is not a partnership of equals. The United States is running the process. The lines are going to be managed through Rubio, and the leverage is entirely asymmetric. And then he says, Delcy is the instrument, not the center of gravity. U.S. officials also assess that Delcy's harsh public rhetoric today was aimed inwards at the Chavista base, not outwards. That messaging is understood as domestic signaling. Nevertheless, as of now, negotiations with the United States are ongoing as we speak. And I agree with all that. I think that's a very good wrap up of what is going on there. She's talking tough too, I do believe, because she doesn't want to get murdered. So that's probably another reason. I mean, he installed his people on the Supreme Court even, just so you know. And then the guy here who said he believes that that this fight between Trump and Elon was fake all along. That would be me and a few others. Here they are at dinner. This is the most interesting thing you'll read today, in my opinion. Had a lovely dinner last night with POTUS and FLOTUS. 2026 is going to be amazing. Why do you think he'd say that? He knows things. They had a conversation. So guys, keep that in mind. This is the year of accountability. It's going to start. Trump did this genius stuff. He took care through EOs, knowing that Congress is slow as molasses. A lot of things have taken effect last year. We're starting to see gas prices drop. We're going to see no tax on tips and overtime as long as you don't live in one of the blue states that decided they don't think they're going to have it in their state, and so on. You're going to see more tax returns this year, but you can expect that the Democrats, because the budget battle is going to come up again at the end of this month, they're going to try to shut down the government to delay your tax checks, just so you know. So all of these things you've got to take into consideration. Every good thing that happens, the bad guys are going to try to counter with other things. But yeah, dude, we're winning. This is going to be an amazing year. We'll get into Minnesota on another show. I might go live and maybe a lot shorter show. There was just a lot to go through with Venezuela. There's a decent amount to go through with the other in Minnesota and stuff, but not as much as for this, because this is all new as of the other day.